you're meeting together, you're making all of these decisions, and you have your author who, after every meeting, is writing this up, and suddenly this document is starting to come together, starting to form. After that document's written, let the members review it and provide input. They're going to step away from the meeting and they'll get more ideas and they'll see things from a different perspective. So allow them to provide input that's then talked about at the next meeting and incorporated. This is a policy that requires action. So I'm saying it again. Listen to the person who is executing the policy. Don't just provide them a seat, actually listen to that person. Now, here's the thing. If you're just starting out and your investigator is just barely starting, doesn't have experience or training in investigations, or maybe it's someone who's done investigations for a while, but their training wasn't formal training, you may want to think about bringing in an expert, bringing in a consultant who can actually answer those questions with a background of knowledge and experience instead of someone who's just guessing. Yes, that will cost money. That will be something that you'll have to budget. But let's look back to the very beginning when you stated your purpose for doing this, when you talked about your baseline and where you are. You want to do this right. You don't want to have to, in a year, redo this again. This is a strenuous, long process. You don't want to have to do it again. So you want to get it right. So it may be worth the investment to spend some money now to avoid the expense of having to do this again. Writing this policy is costing money. Every hour that is spent on this policy is an hour that these employees are being paid. So it's already costing you money. You want to ensure that you only have to do it once. So if you have to bring in an expert, do it. It will be well worth the money. As you work through it and you get down to the final draft, you have your author, but maybe your committee will thin out. You don't need every member of the committee anymore. But who you should have is whoever's responsible for the policy. So that may be your HR director, maybe a vice president or someone else. But basically, who is going to be blamed if something goes wrong? That person. And then legal, your attorney, your general counsel. And the reason why that's important is because you've climbed the staircase, you're almost to the top. But if your policy isn't legally sound, you're going to fall back down to the bottom and have to start all over again. Your attorneys have to feel comfortable, not just sign off on it. They have to feel comfortable defending your policy in court, because the odds are, no matter how well your investigator does, there will come a day when you are sued and you have to defend your policy in court. Or you have to be able to defend your policy against a threat of a lawsuit. And the only way that that's effective is if your attorney believes in the policy and believes that they can defend it. So let them be there in the final writing process. And you also need them and or your HR director to ensure that this policy applies to employment law, that it's illegal. Not only is it legally sound, but it's legal in the first place. And one thing that you may think about is, does this policy provide due process? Now, if you're not a government agency, you may not have due process requirements. You're not subject to constitutional requirements. But due process is a great starting point. It's a great baseline, because due process is something the courts understand. Due process is an attitude or a way that they look at things. So even if you don't call it due process, if you call it equity or whatever else you call it, use that standard when looking at your policy. And basically all that means is you're allowing both sides in an allegation to provide their statements, their evidence, their witnesses. Both sides have a voice to be a part of the process and to say what they want to say so that all of the information is considered and it's not a one-sided process. So this is a great time to look at it. Our due process protections, no matter what we name them, are those present in this policy?